Hi, good morning, everyone. Ian Andrews here with you from Lakewood Alive. Thanks for joining us today for Weatherization Basics, the latest in the Knowing Your Home series. We're really glad that you're here. We're going to just pause a couple of times, wait for folks to queue into the room as we normally do. So I'll be back with you in just a moment. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Ian Andrews back with you at Lakewood Alive. Thanks for joining us today. We will get started here momentarily. I'm going to give it probably about another minute, maybe a little bit less, and we'll get started with Weatherization Basics. Be back with you in a moment. Good morning, friends. Ian Andrews here with you from Lakewood Alive. Apologies if you hear my dog. He's been barking a lot lately. It's happening right now as I speak. Welcome to Weatherization Basics, the latest in the Knowing Your Home series. We're really thrilled that you're here, especially on a nice, sunny, albeit cool day. Lakewood Alive, our mission is to foster and sustain vibrant neighborhoods. And part of that vibrancy is making sure that we're able to maintain and sustain our beautiful Lakewood homes to make sure that they're running properly and keeping us nice and warm in the winter and cool in the summer as best as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Allison Urbanik. Allison has really just created such a phenomenal series over the years, and we're excited to talk about weatherization in partnership with a really great company who we worked with for a long time, Cleveland Lumber. So without further ado, Allison, the floor is yours.
Great. Good morning, Ian, and everyone who is with us this morning. Can you hear me okay?
You're loud and clear.
Great. Thank you. This has become our new routine, right? Got to make sure all of our technology is working. So good morning and welcome. We are now, I believe, in our 10th workshop of the Knowing Your Home series, and we are virtual. I'm coming to you live from Spring Garden Avenue here in Lakewood, and it is a beautiful fall day. And what a great day to talk about weatherization. Jeff from Cleveland Lumber and I were talking this morning about how it's a perfect day to talk about kind of caulking and filling gaps and kind of understanding where we need to really focus our efforts to keep our homes nice and cozy going into our fall and winter season. So we're super excited to have you this morning. And we're super excited to have Jeff. It's going to be a wonderful workshop this morning. I do want to give two plugs before we move forward. We do have our Waterproofing Basics workshop on Thursday, so coming up here. And then on Saturday, a week from today, we have Prepping Your Gardens for Spring Success. And we're partnering with Paul Billick from Lakewood Garden Center. We're very excited to have him with us to kind of wrap up the gardening season to get us ready for next year. So lots of good stuff coming up. And then we do have a few more workshops after that in October. So I am going to now turn it over to Jeff, welcome him, and I hope we can get started and talk about some really great things regarding weatherization. So welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Allison and Ian, and it is great to be able to partner with Lakewood Alive again for the Knowing Your Home series. We are going to be speaking a little bit about weatherization basics this morning, just some of the simple things that you can do now to ensure that your home is ready for the winter. And I know the Farmer's Almanac has this year predicted that it's going to be exceptionally cold. So we will be using these little tips to make sure that our homes are as energy efficient as possible, gearing up for the cooler months. So we can go ahead and move forward to the next slide.
Okay, so I'm going to pause this for just 1 second. I neglected to mention a few things. Well, first of all, of course, the Farmer's Almanac is going to say that this year is going to be as cold as it could be. Just very fitting for 2020. Just want to say that. And then number two, if you do have questions, we are taking them throughout the presentation. So you're going to see on the right-hand side of your screen a little thought bubble or chat bubble. If you want to click on that, you can submit your questions, and then I will relay those to Jeff. This is going to be a conversation about weatherization. As you know, I like to chime in and ask questions. So help me keep the conversation going by submitting questions throughout the presentation. So again, use your chat box on the right-hand side to submit the questions. All right, go ahead, Jeff. Okay,
so we'll start by thinking about the home as an envelope, from the floor to ceiling, wrapped as an envelope, and how that will be a barrier that separates the conditioned air, the heated air in the winter, the cooled air in the summer, and the unconditioned air, which is outside. This protects the entire home from the elements. Now, the issue with this as an envelope is when certain parts of that envelope fail, it allows heat to escape, and it'll end up raising heating costs. So these costs can be seen, through reduced energy efficiency to repairs that come at a pretty high cost. That, for example, if you're not keeping the heat inside of your home, your heat has to run more often to maintain the temperature. And so with that extra run time, you run the risk of, having to replace a heating unit. And that's not something that you want to do when it's, 30 degrees outside. And so these small things that you can do will go a long way in maintaining your home's energy efficiency. So a few of the common problems that you see here with the envelope are unattended openings, where your gas line comes in to your home, your cable line, your fireplace area if you have a chimney. There are also gas lines if you happen to have gas logs. If you have a crawl space or a basement, any unsealed areas around glass block windows, various things like that, can also allow heat to escape and raise your heating costs. And then we'll talk a little bit more a little later in the presentation about drafty areas like around windows, doors, and some things that you can do in those areas to make sure that you're as efficient as possible in your home. Now, if you look at this image here, you can see that through the roof, there is a percentage of heat loss if the house is not insulated at all. So you could lose up to 26% through the roof, 33% through the walls, 18% through the windows, and 11% through the doors and floors. So doing, like I said, these small things will go a really long way in ensuring that your house is as energy efficient as possible. So we can move to the next slide.
And Jeff, I think this is a good time to talk about energy audits. I'm going to put in a shameless plug, and I'm going to send out a link to the chat box that Dominion East Ohio Gas offers at free, zero cost, to Friends of Lakewood Alive, a free energy audit where they come in and they do exactly what you're showing here. They're evaluating your doors and your windows and your roof to see if you have insulated attic areas or if your roof line is insulated. And so they'll tell you where you are lacking insulation. You might be talking about energy audits a little bit later in the presentation, but they really help you to identify where you're losing energy in your home. And so if you mention Lakewood Alive, you get a free energy audit with a bunch of free perks like caulking, caulk tubes, water-saving faucets, some insulation tubes to go over your pipes. So a lot of great stuff. And they'll make a donation to Lakewood Alive for $25 per energy audit that they do. So I'm going to send that out to the chat box, but really great to help you identify these things as Jeff's talking about them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sending that out and mentioning that. That's a good resource to have. So we'll start at the top of the home with the attic. And when you're looking at your attic, if you go up into your attic and you're looking for cracks and gaps and various other things that could cause you to lose heat in the attic, you don't have to focus on sealing every tiny little crack and gap that you see. You don't need to necessarily crawl around on the trusses and just meticulously comb over your attic. Focus on sealing up the largest holes because that's where you're going to end up realizing some of the highest energy savings. For example, you could do pouches of fiberglass insulation to plug stud cavities, gaps behind the walls. So any large open gaps that you see, you could buy some insulation and just fill those gaps with that insulation, and that would make a substantial difference in your heating costs and your energy savings. And as we mentioned in the previous slide, and the image is still up on this particular slide, 26% of heated air could leak outdoors through the attic. So if you're considering where to start, I would recommend starting upstairs in the attic. And another way that you could do that is to pull the attic insulation back. There are seal cutouts for drywall and electrical fixtures that you'll just see a rough cut in the drywall where they fed in, junction boxes and various other pipes, fans, exhaust fans for your bathrooms and things like that. You can seal those. You would use caulks, different kinds of caulk for the smaller gaps. So I would say probably for caulk no larger than 1/4 of an inch gap that you'd want to fill. And then for the larger gaps, you can use a spray foam. And there's a really, well-known brand of spray foam. It's called Great Stuff. And they have various gaps and crack fillers for large gaps, small gaps, windows and doors. So they have specific fillers for various different types of application. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay, so windows. A lot of
Jeff.
homes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I was muted. This is the common problem of technology. I was going to say, could we talk a little bit just before we move forward? So Ian, could you go back one slide, please? Thank you. If we could talk a little bit about insulation in your attic, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about the importance of if your attic is a living space versus if it's not a living space. So we just want to make sure that we're insulating properly for the living space that we're using. So for instance, like we wouldn't want to insulate the floor of the attic if we were going to be using the 3rd floor as a living space. We would want to insulate the roof line.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if like Allison said, if you do have a living space in your attic, you will essentially treat the attic as if it was just another part of your home. So you would want insulation in the walls if you have drywall in the attic area, and you want to make sure that that is properly insulated. And the same logic would apply to that space that would apply in other parts of your home. So for example, if you find a cutout where there's an outlet or a light fixture or something like that, you can seal that with caulking or drywall. And then up in the rafters, where the majority of or in the trusses, where the majority of the heated air, the conditioned air would be escaping, that is where you would want to focus your attention for insulating a living space. Now, if it's not a living space and it's just an open area, that at that point you could lay bats of insulation on top of the drywall that is on the ceiling of the living space and focus your attention on that, as well as the insulating around the gaps and cracks where the trusses might be. Take a look at various things with the chimney stacks that are in the attic that are running up to the roof, vent stacks from an exhaust fan. All of those things would apply. So, and if anyone has any questions about that, obviously, please feel free to ask.
Great, thank you. And then can we talk a little bit more about great stuff? How important is it to utilize the great stuff for the project that you're doing? So basically, I just want to make sure that people understand that you shouldn't use regular great stuff like in your windows, for like around your windows, for instance, because it expands so much. Am I remembering that correctly, that we should use the proper great stuff for the project?
Yeah, absolutely. It is important. So for example, like Allison was saying, let's just say that you bought, for a weatherization project last year, you bought the stuff to fill large gaps, and you have a small gap around your window and you apply that great stuff. It's going to expand more because it's specifically designed for a large gap filler. So if you use that around a small area, what you're going to get is you're going to get too much expansion, and it's going to, and then it just creates a big mess. And it is very important to use the proper great stuff for the proper application. So that's why they have the general purpose, and it expands. The general purpose great stuff would be your middle of the road as far as how much expansion you would see on that. The windows and doors is going to expand significantly less, because typically you're going to have smaller gaps around windows and doors. And then the large gap filler would be the one with the most expansion for your bigger areas, like the large gaps that you may see in your attic area and crawl space and various other places like that in your home. So yeah, that's a really good point, Allison. It is important to make sure that you're using the proper product for the application that you're working with specifically.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I think we can move forward now, please, Ian.
All right, so windows are a big cause for lost heat and energy efficiency issues in older homes specifically, and even newer homes. Improperly installed windows and things like that can cause issues. And we'll talk about different kinds of windows in a little greater detail here moving forward. So in Lakewood, in Cleveland in general, a lot of houses have older wood windows. And so with these old wood windows, you will notice something. It's called glazing putty, and it's just it looks like hardened, almost Play-Doh around the glass and window area. And if your house is older, if you look at your windows from the exterior, you will see some of this glazing putty more than likely starting to get brittle. It'll develop cracks, and sometimes you can literally just touch it and it will fall off of the window. And so that is one cause. Once that glazing fails, you will lose a lot of heat through there. Double hung wood sashes as well. So a top and bottom sash, and that's just sash is just another name for a window. But the top and bottom of those windows can contract, because wood expands and contracts depending on factors like humidity and things like that. And so those expansion and contractions can allow cold air to enter your home and warm air to escape. Newer vinyl windows, if you happen to have vinyl windows in your home, or you've replaced some windows with vinyl windows, you will also see weather stripping on those. If you open your window, there's weather stripping around the bottom and usually around the sides. That can wear out over time, and that worn out weather stripping will also create gaps that would allow cool air in, warm air out. And another vinyl window thing that we'll discuss this a little bit greater detail further in the presentation. But if your windows do not lock properly and are out of alignment or anything like that, not locking properly it allows for the window to stay slightly ajar, and so the weather stripping doesn't, compress itself up against the actual window frame, and so that can create a loss of heat in those little small areas. So how do you go about identifying whether or not you have a drafty window in your home? So you could go with the approach, as you see in the image here. There's a blown out candle. You can actually take a candle or a lighter or anything like that, and you can put that up to the window. Just leave it 5 or 6 inches away from the window, and you will see if that candle blows. If you see the flame moving or blowing significantly, that's a way to identify that there's air flowing in through those windows, gaps and cracks and things like that. You can also use an infrared thermometer. You can point that at the window around the frame, and you can notice a significant temperature change. And the temperature is going to be slightly different there. Like if you point the infrared thermometer on the glass, there's going to be a cooler temperature than there would be on other parts of the home. But you will notice a substantial drop, probably I would say anywhere from 20 to 25 degrees if there's going to be air moving through there. So just something to keep an eye on. So you can go either route with that. And if anyone has any questions about this slide, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can move forward to the next one.
So Jeff, I'm going to get on my soapbox here for just a second, if you would allow me, to talk about wooden windows versus replacement windows. And I'm sure you get a lot of questions at Cleveland Lumber about windows, right? And people are probably coming in saying, oh my gosh, my windows are 100 years old and they're so drafty and they're so leaky. I want to get new windows. Do you hear that a lot?
Yes. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we do. We get that quite a bit. So.
Okay. So I just want to tell people, my little soapbox here is that obviously if you want new vinyl replacement windows or whatever fancy new replacement windows you want to get, do it. Lean into it, do it. If that's the look and the feel that you want for your home, the return on investment is a long period of time. The average cost versus return on investment is like 10 to 15 years on a replacement window. I would encourage you to think about insulation and where you're missing insulation in your home before you decide to jump into windows. Some people may think they don't have another option, that a replacement window is the only option for them in order to get their windows working, which some of the time that is the true case. But other times there are companies that will come out and replace your windows. Our windows have lasted 100+ years. They were designed well. They were designed to last. So of course they might need a little bit of tweaking or repair. So it's probably worth the investment if you enjoy your wooden windows, your original windows, to consider having a contractor come out and take a look at them. Or if you have older windows that just have a few broken parts, there are companies, if you have a vinyl replacement window like I do, my whole house is full of terrible vinyl replacement windows that are smiling at me, mocking me. I kind of wish I had old wooden windows that were falling apart instead of 1990 vinyl replacement windows that are falling apart. But there are companies who can repair those as well. So before you throw the towel in and decide to call someone to replace your windows, you can always reach out to Lakewood Alive, and we're happy to help you find people, or Cleveland Lumber. They have a whole cadre of contractors as well. And Cleveland Lumber does some work on windows. Jeff, if you want to talk about that in a moment. But there are ways that you can invest less money and repair your windows instead of throwing out and getting new. So I just wanted to say, don't feel like you have to throw in the towel. Insulation is really the way to go when you want a quick return on investment. And Jeff, can you talk about what Cleveland Lumber can do for windows?
Yeah, absolutely. And what Allison, just to reiterate, that new windows in your home, that can be a huge investment. So the purpose of talking about weatherization and things like that today are the really inexpensive tips that you can gather and utilize to avoid having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on repairs when you can just do simple fixes. So Cleveland Lumber does window repair, and this year actually has been incredibly busy for that. People have been bringing in old wood windows with broken glass. We provide hardware for these old wood windows. We have lots of contractors that are taking out wood windows and putting in vinyl replacement windows. And what they will do, they will bring us the old hardware for the wood windows, and we keep that there. So we keep the pulleys for the wood windows where the ropes go, and the weights that counterbalance those when you open and close those. We keep those there, and we give them away. So we don't sell them. People bring them in from old jobs, and it's something that just tucks right inside of the window frame. So you can come by if you need to replace a pulley or a weight or something like that. You can certainly come by Cleveland Lumber and see if we have what you need to accommodate that. But we also do screen repairs, storm window repairs, and those relatively inexpensive repairs go a long way in helping with the energy efficiency. So if you're thinking about weatherization of your home and you notice you have a cracked window or something like that, you can bring that in for repair. And while you're waiting for that, it takes right now, just to give you kind of a frame of reference, we're running, I would say, 4 to 5 days on window repairs. So while you're waiting for that, you can go ahead and weatherize the jamb or your window frame and take care of all of that, and then you can put in your window with your repaired glass or screen or whatever it is. And the storm windows as well. We do storm windows, which we'll talk about that a little bit later in the slideshow as a more cost-effective measure to just add that extra barrier to help better insulate your home. So yeah, there are a number of different options before you have to consider replacement, and so those are a few of the things that Cleveland Lumber does offer.
That's great, thanks. And I mean, Cleveland Lumber is so great, as well as Lakewood Hardware. I am swearing off the big box stores. You've heard that from me before. I'm tired of someone swearing up and down to me at the big box store that this X product is going to solve my problems. It's going to be the moon and the stars. And it doesn't do anything because they weren't listening to me when I was talking. I prefer Cleveland Lumber and Lakewood Hardware because I can walk up and say, hey, Avi, hey, Jeff, this is my problem. They lead me to the solution, and it works. Glenn is the same way, and Daryl, and all the great people at Lakewood Hardware. Trust in your local professionals to help you solve your problems because they are a wealth of knowledge. So 100% check out the local people. They're great.
Great. And we can move ahead to the next slide. Okay, so just to kind of build off of what we were just discussing, for wood sashes, specifically wood sashes, in the next slide we'll discuss vinyl windows. You can apply foam window sill, and that seal, you'll see it's the little blue product there. It's just foam tape. It is just a narrow strip of foam in a roll that has an adhesive on the back of it. You can apply those around your windowsill. You can go all the way around that or wherever you have gaps, and that will help to, what it does, it expands and contracts. And so as it compresses, and then once the windowsill or the window is locked in place, that foam will then expand and fill in the area to allow for a more tight seal there. The next thing, the orange Frost King fingertip rope caulk that you see there, that's just a roll of caulk, and you roll that out like you would a piece of twine, and it sticks. And so any small gaps around the exterior of your home and around your windows, you can apply this rope caulk, and that will help to seal that as well. If you use shrink film, If you're familiar with shrink film, it's just a piece of plastic that goes on the inside of your window, and you take a heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, don't worry. If you have a blow dryer, you can take that and heat up the ends around your window. That little film of plastic will add a barrier between losing your losing heat and conditioned air and allowing it to escape. So those are a few small things that you can do. Now, one of the last things, if you happen to have a small crack in your window, you can take some clear nail polish and you can apply clear nail polish to that small crack, and that will help to prevent it from cracking further. Now, if the crack is all the way across the window or something like that, that's something that would need to be replaced. But if you do have a small crack that's just started and you want to try to wait until the cooler weather subsides, then you can put some clear nail polish on that, and that should help to prevent that crack from spreading until you can get to where the weather permits you to open the windows and leave those open so that you can get your window repaired. So that's how you can. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, with that foam tape and the rope caulking, is that something that you need to do annually, or how long does that last when you put that up?
The foam tape should last you several seasons. The rope caulk is going to be largely weather dependent. So it should last multiple seasons, but if we had an unusually harsh winter or something like that, that would be something that would need to be reassessed on an annual basis. And then you could take a look at that rope caulk. If it looks like it's starting to fall away or peel back, you would definitely consider replacing it. Otherwise, that it should be good for another season. I think it's just more of a you just do an eye test on it. You take a walk around your home in the fall and take a look at the rope caulk that you applied last season, and you can determine whether or not that needs to be replaced. But the foam tape, it's not subjected to the snow and the rain and the ice and everything else, and so that being on the inside of the house should hold up for several seasons. And you're talking maybe $5 for the foam tape and the rope caulk, so relatively inexpensive stuff that will last you multiple years. So Allison was talking about a return on investment there. For $5, that really is it's really a no-brainer to do these things, just to make sure that you add some energy efficiency to your home.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. That's helpful.
Sure. So we can move to talk about some vinyl windows. So with vinyl windows, much like we just talked about with wood windows, you can apply the double-sided tape, which is very similar to the foam. The double-sided tape is just going to be go right in between the frame. On a vinyl window, it's a little bit different. So you'll notice if you look at your vinyl windows, there's usually a gap that allows the window to slide up and down. You can temporarily apply some of this double-sided tape in there, right on the edge, right on the corner. I'm actually looking at one of my windows right now, and you can apply that double-sided tape, and then you can put that window insulation over top of that. Now, you would, just keep in mind that you're working with plastic. So if you use a heat gun, just be mindful of that. That's why we are recommending the double-sided tape for the plastic sheeting that we discussed in the previous slide. You don't want to melt your vinyl window frames or anything like that. You can certainly use a blow dryer because that doesn't put off enough heat to do any harm to the vinyl windows. But that's the double-sided tape with the blow dryer will seal that right up and add a buffer for the air. And at the end of the season, just something that we didn't touch on in the last slide that you can use is at the end of the season when you're ready to take this plastic off and open your windows again, you can use rubbing alcohol, and it'll release any kind of seal or anything on there and will not cause any sort of damage to the window. So we also have a couple of other things for vinyl windows. Brittle weather stripping. If you'll see right there at the image on the bottom there, that is called, it's just called wool weather stripping. And once that fails, if you look around your window, you can see little gaps and where the weather stripping has just become brittle and fallen off. Those will allow air to escape. And so all you have to do, Cleveland Lumber has this weather stripping in stock. We'll be more than happy to replace it for you. If it's something that you want to tackle as a DIY project, the technicians in our glass shop will also, go over how to install that weather stripping. And it's really straightforward, very simple and easy project that could be knocked out on a Saturday morning or something for the majority of your house or wherever you need to replace those. And we touched on this earlier in the introduction, but also the locks, the window locks. Some vinyl windows. I know I have one in my house right now that I need to work on, but it doesn't lock properly, and that not locking properly allows cool air to just enter into the home because the window is not sealed shut. So take a look at those. If they are not locking properly, it could be something as simple as tightening a screw. It could also be replacing one of those locks, which the glass department at Cleveland Lumber can guide you on the best way to do that, because there are hundreds, literally, window manufacturers out there, and each one seems to have a different lock. Now, you can bring those in. If you bring a lock in, we'll be glad to match that up for you. And if Cleveland Lumber can't match it up, we can sort of guide you to a place where you can get some harder to find window parts in the area. The name of the company is actually Western Window in Berea. They specialize in some really difficult hardware to find these days. Some of the stuff that just doesn't exist anymore. So those are just a few of the short-term projects that you can do to ensure that your house is a little bit more energy efficient.
Western Window Service is the best place in the entire world where they know so much about replacement windows. They have so many parts. That should be your first call, no matter what. They're very knowledgeable, but then they can also repair wooden windows as well. So they are the jack of all trades for windows. So make sure you put that in your phone. Western Window Service in Berea is a fabulous place that can make all of your window problems disappear.
Yeah, and Western Window also has a service where they do on-site repair. Cleveland Lumber does not perform any repairs on site. So if you have something that's a little bit more involved that you don't necessarily feel comfortable tackling yourself, you can give Western Window a call, and they do free estimates. They'll come out and take a look at everything. So that partnership that we have with them is great, because we send people over their way all the time, and as far as I've heard, everyone has come back and said that they were extremely satisfied with Western Window. So that is a great partner in the area to take care of some of your window needs. And just to touch very briefly on what we talked about a little bit earlier, some of the long-term fixes for vinyl windows. If you look at a vinyl window and looks like there's condensation or anything in between the two panes of glass, a lot of the glass on vinyl windows are double pane. That is a broken seal. Now, that broken seal, the only way to replace that is to replace the glass. This is a little bit more expensive, but it's not the cost of a new window. So if you bring that window to Cleveland Lumber, for example, you can have that measured up. We can order that window. It is a process that takes about a week because we have to order those in specifically made to size for your window. But the broken seal will be repaired. You'll get a new piece of glass in there with a new seal, and it will add some energy efficiency to your home. Another long-term solution to energy and heat loss is storm windows. You can do storm windows on the exterior of your home. That'll just create another layer, in between the cool air on the outside and the heated conditioned air on the inside. And those storm windows are another slightly, they're more expensive than the rope caulk and things, but it's a nice fix that doesn't involve hiring a contractor and getting all of your windows replaced. It's just another fix that you can do. And then finally, if your windows are, in extremely bad shape, and they're just worse for wear, and the amount of money and time and effort that you would spend repairing them just is not conducive to a repair, then I would recommend considering replacement windows. But again, up to this point, we've talked about all of these different measures that you can take to ensure that your home is sealed and you don't have to jump out right away and replace your windows. So those are just a few of the long-term fixes that I wanted to touch on briefly. But we can move forward to the next slide where we'll be discussing doors. So this image is actually a door that was emailed to me by a customer. So that's a real problem that a customer had, and they sent that over to me. So the drafty doors, there are a few things that you can do to pinpoint exactly if you think that there's cool air coming in through your doors. Take a look at your hinges. Loose hinges can and will cause cool air to escape. And weather stripping and door seals. So when you open your door around the bottom, there's the door seal and the door sweep that a lot of times has a little small piece of rubber or something like that on there, either on the floor or on the bottom of the door. Those can allow weather to escape. And then if you look on the inside of your door jamb when you open the door, there's a little small rubber piece, and that's a door seal. And it doesn't, if it's brittle, not even there, or any other things, it can allow cool air to escape as well. And then finally, if you are opening and closing your door and you notice that the lock set moves around on you, that loose lock set is essentially, it's just a lock. It's just a few screws holding that in place. But if you remove that lock set, there's a giant hole there, and that can allow cool air to escape. So making sure that lock set is tight will prevent cool air from coming in through that opening, and will prevent warm air from escaping. So those are just a few things that you can do, and we can talk a little bit more about that when we move to the next slide. So short-term solutions here. You can check your door alignment. A lot of times you can notice that your door may stick or something like that. If you're a little bit handy, this can be done by taking the door off of its hinges and reinstalling it. And during that time, when you take the door off of the hinges, you can look to see if there is any give in the hinges during this process. If there is, then you can replace hinges. Replacement hinges you can buy that will match your existing hinges. They are relatively inexpensive, and you can assess those and make sure that your hinge hardware is functioning properly. And we spoke briefly about this on the previous slide, but make sure that the rubber threshold on the bottom of the door is where it should be. That can loosen and work its way out. You walk through that door every day. If you step on it, you can knock it loose or something like that. If it's loose, it's just a matter of popping it. There's a little track. You can take a small Phillips head screwdriver in most cases, or a paint scraper, a 5-in-1 tool, and pop those right back in place. And that will make sure that is functioning properly. You can also consider applying foam tape around the door in the same way that you would apply it to the windows, just around the perimeter if there's cool air coming in. So the process, once you've tackled your windows, you can move right onto your door, and you'll already be an expert. So and you can finally install a door sweep. These can be mounted just right on the door itself. They make several different types of door sweeps. But if you do that, you can, that'll help with energy costs as well. And if you want to go with a, instant, you don't have to go out to the store and buy a door sweep or anything. Some people take an old towel and fold it up and just tuck it right below the door. They make all sorts of different products. You can do that, but there's a little easy way to do it to keep cool air from coming into your house. Just, pop a towel at the bottom of the door, and that will help. So those are.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about door sweeps? So do we need to measure? I mean, are they a uniform size? I mean, our doors are not a uniform size. Do they come in multiple sizes, or do you cut them down before you install them? How does that work?
So some door sweeps will be, already pre-cut. Most door sweeps are right around the 36-inch mark. And the reason that is because typical doors, now there are some exceptions and they do make longer door sweeps, but most doors are 3 feet wide or less. So you'll buy a 36-inch door sweep, and then you'll cut that to size to fit your door. Again, you can go either way. There are a couple of different brands that have, common sizes, so 30-inch, 32-inch, 36-inch doors, but you typically will buy a 36 and cut those to size. And to cut those, it's a piece of fairly thin aluminum, and you can use just a regular hacksaw if you have power tools. You can also use a miter saw or something like that with a blade that's made specifically for cutting metal, if you have that around. But just a simple hand saw, like a hacksaw with a multi-purpose blade, you'll be able to cut through that no problem. It doesn't take a ton of effort. So that's the best way to go about that.
That's great. Now, depending on the width of the gap between the door and the threshold, a hack that I have seen, and it just depends how far you're willing to go to hack, pool noodles, actually, if you just cut them like a hot dog bun to the length of your door, if you have a very wide gap and you're looking for a temporary fix, you could put that pool noodle in there. They're squishy, they jam up, and basically you would probably want to use this on a door that you perhaps don't open a lot, but you can. You would need to adjust it if it is one that you open regularly. But pool noodles will actually help fill that gap and hug against the door to stay in place. Yeah,
that's a great little hack, like you said, for that. So there's all sorts of things, and the internet is an invaluable resource when it comes to things like this. I'm sure there are 100 different YouTube videos on how to take that pool noodle and cut it down. So those are great ways to do that you can do, and it's relatively inexpensive. As far as more long-term solutions to door issues, you can install a storm door. Now that storm door will be great for the winter. It's a foam insulated. Most storm doors are foam insulated, so they will add an extra layer of insulation around your door. And another great thing about a storm door is once it's installed, if you install it before the winter, it will protect your home from from getting beat by the elements. So the snow and stuff, it won't be beating directly, especially if you have an older home with a really nice wood door. It will protect and preserve that wood door. And some of the homes, especially in Lakewood, have some beautiful entry doors and things like that. So you want to put a storm door on there, you can do that, and that will add insulation. It'll protect your entry door. And in the spring and summer, if you want to open your entry door, you can do that and open the screen and allow some fresh air to flow through your home. So that's a great way to address weatherization issues with your door. Now, some doors, like the image that we saw in the last slide, are beyond weather stripping, storm doors and things like that, so they would need to be replaced. So if you're at that point and you need to replace your storm door, feel free to call Cleveland Lumber. We will talk you through the process. We can help you pinpoint the kind of door that you may be looking for, and also put you in touch with some contractors in your community that will be able to help you out with that project. So those are just a couple of really quick long-term solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And I just want to reiterate for the Lakewood residents, most of our doors are not common sizes. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do, Jeff. So you want to make sure that you measure twice before you get that door ordered. Some places will come and measure for you, and other places you'll just want to make sure you measure. And if you're not sure how to measure, I believe you could call Cleveland Lumber or Integrity Window and Door, or wherever you want to shop locally. They'll tell you how to measure to get the exact fit for your door.
Yes, absolutely. We can definitely help you with that. And there are, as Allison mentioned, a number of other door and window companies in the community that can walk you through that process, because you'll want to measure for the door itself, and then you'll want to factor in the jamb and a couple of other things. So it's a little bit of a process, but it's not anything that is so involved that you couldn't do it yourself and make sure that you get the right door to fit your specific opening. So yeah, that's just another way to make sure that you're protecting your investment, making sure your doors are installed properly and are sealing and allowing your heat to stay inside and not heat your front porch. So yeah, we're good to move forward to the next slide. And so this is just briefly, we'll talk about some of the other locations for air leaks. We've covered windows and doors and other places. And so gas lines, anything coming into the foundation or through the basement that will be attached to a stove, a washer dryer area, anything like that, plumbing, cable lines, internet lines, all of these they're pre-drilled, and so they're in the line of step. They will obviously have a hole there, and those little gaps and spaces, you can just fill those with caulk. Just a small bead of caulk around those will prevent the air from leaking out. And basement air leaks, if you're noticing that your basement is, after you've done a walk around in your basement, you can seal areas in that with spray foam or caulk to seal cracks and openings. We mentioned the great stuff earlier. That's another product, or another application for that product. If you're walking around your basement, any gaps or cracks, you can make sure you grab the proper great stuff, and you can knock that out fairly easily. And take care of that. And when you're looking at electrical lines, duct work, that anything that will pass from the inside of your home through a foundation, through a basement, through a crawl space, and into the outside, those gaps and cracks can cause the air to escape. So you want to just take a look at those areas and fill those with caulk or the great stuff as you see fit. There are a few exceptions to that. So larger holes, like if you have a dryer vent, that's a pretty large hole, maybe 4 inches in diameter. Those might need, if they have a large gap around them, there might need to be a piece of insulation there that you can stuff in there to help cover those up. So these are just, basically you're using the same applications that we've discussed throughout the presentation, and you're just using those to fill in smaller cold air gaps that you may see in various parts of your home. And so
one that I found unexpectedly, and I don't know, Jeff, what you've found, but I was in my basement the other day. I have an 90 plus efficient furnace, so that means it vents out the side of my house. And I was near doing some laundry, and I looked up and saw where the exhaust pipe goes out the side of my house. I could see daylight, and I was so surprised. I never even thought to look there, because I would have thought that it would have been insulated by the people who installed it. But no, I could see right out. And I lived in my house 11 years and have never even noticed it until I blame COVID. I'm spending a lot of time in places that I don't normally. So that is on my list to get some great stuff to fill that gap that I never even would have noticed. But I know that it's coming from a direction that it gets a lot of wind in the winter. So this time of year is perfect for going around and looking for the gaps. The temperature's changing, so things are starting to shrink up a little bit. So you're going to be able to see those gaps around the pipe. So you're looking for a fun thing to do on a Saturday, again, COVID times, we have nowhere else to go. Walking around and looking for these gaps, I think, will be very fruitful. To your point, it'll keep all that warm air in over the winter months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's I guess one of the pluses to, you want to try to put an optimistic spin on COVID, then you can do this right now. You'll notice things because you're at home more often. You're not going out as much, and so you will notice things that you haven't noticed before. And you'll start to think about those on a regular basis, and it will allow you to make small changes that will have a significant impact in your home's energy efficiency. So yeah, thank you for that, Alvin. We can move ahead to the final slide, and we'll just touch on insulation briefly. So R value on insulation. All insulation is rated with what is called an R value, and it just measures how well building insulation material resists heat. So the higher the R value, the greater the insulation performance. Adding insulation to different parts of your home, like attic, basement, or crawl space, that's one of the best ways to improve energy efficiency in your home. And this can be something that you can just simply add on top of existing insulation. If the project is more involved, I mean, this is something that an insulation professional would have to take care of. But just putting insulation in attic and basement areas, like we discussed previously, is a way to improve the energy efficiency of your home, and it's relatively inexpensive to do so.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate that insulation is your biggest return on investment. If you have just a small budget to work with, focus on your insulation, because it's going to you are going to have a noticeable change once you get insulated. I think we can all agree on that. And if you do get an energy audit done, again, all these shameless plugs today, but if you do get an energy audit done, they will give you an energy audit, they'll give you a report, and then if you do any of the improvements that are on the report, you can actually get rebates on making those improvements. And I'm happy to talk with you further about that. But you can get paid for saving energy, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, those are just a few of the ways that you can bolster your home's energy value. And like Allison said, it is a significant return on investment. So that's a great point. And then we can move ahead to the next slide, and that's it. So we're here to take questions. If anyone has questions, now is the time to ask those.
Okay, so we do have a question. So they have a door in our furnace room that opens directly to the space under our porch outside. Is there a recommended way to insulate this kind of opening? So that's your former coal chute, Ashley. That's where they used to dump the coal in when your house had a coal furnace. So Jess, any thoughts on insulating the coal door?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not something that you'll be using, I'm assuming you're not spending a ton of time under your porch. So if it's not something you're using regularly, you can put those plastic sheets up to shrink wrap around that door. That's one thing that you can do. Another thing that you can do, and this is a little bit of a outside of the box suggestion, but there's foam board called dowel board, and it has a small R value for insulation. It's made to go behind exterior, so vinyl siding and things like that. It's just a thick foam board, and and you can take that foam board and cut it to size of your door opening. They come in 4x8 sheets. They're pretty cheap, but you can take those, cut it to size of your door, put that on the door. That'll add an extra barrier of insulation, and then you can put the shrink wrap around the outside, just to sort of bolster that a little bit. So again, it's not common. That's not specifically what that's designed for, but for a door that you're not going to be using very often, that would work. That would work just fine.
Absolutely, yeah. You just want to make sure that you get it sealed to prevent that cold air. They have something called peel and seal, or seal and peel, actually. I think it's a DAP product that you could use around the opening of the door, and then put that insulation or even pink insulation and then wrap it. And that'll put a nice barrier there. And it's not permanent. So if you decide you wanted to put a slide in your backyard into your basement, or whatever you want to do with your coal chute, you would still be able to reopen it up. So that's a great question. Thanks, Ashley. We are starting to end our workshop here. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to get those in. I do want to take the time to reiterate, it's going to start getting cold. So this is the time for you to remember how your house reacts to cold. So if you do have pipes that freeze in the winter, remember that time when they were frozen and what happened. Was it just a freak accident because it was really, really cold outside? Or was it because there's a draft that's coming onto those pipes and causing them to freeze? So start thinking about those things so we can get them fixed before we enter into the cold season. And remember, again, if you have to drip your pipes, start getting into that mindset. We're getting cold. You need to start thinking about those things. So we do have another question. So Katrina is asking about insulation specialists in the area, and that she's looking to replace the insulation in her attic. So I know that you can contact Cleveland Lumber for contractors. You can also contact Lakewood Alive. We're happy to help you find folks in the community that can help you with insulation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. If you call Cleveland Lumber, we'll be more than happy to put you in touch with several insulation companies that we work with on probably almost a daily basis. So they're in and out of our store all the time, and they do great work. So we'll be happy to put you in touch with those companies.
Right, and just to reiterate, use your local resources: Lakewood Hardware, Cleveland Lumber, Lakewood Alive. Lakewood Alive, we're able to walk you through the process from start to finish, ensuring that you get a job well done, saving you time, money, and tears. That's really the whole focus of our program, to ensure that we are connecting residents with the appropriate contractors and knowledge to get the job done. So don't hesitate to reach out again to any of your local experts. You're not in this alone. We are here to help you. So I'm not seeing any final questions. I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts here at Lakewood Alive for spending your Saturday morning with us. We are thankful for all of the community support that we receive to keep our program up and running and supporting residents just like you. We do have our 2 workshops coming up. So Waterproofing Basics on Thursday. This is a must for anyone who has a 100-year-old basement. You can find out if your basement is quote unquote normal or if it's a problem child, and we can help you get through that. And then coming up on Saturday, a week from today, we have Prepping Your Gardens for Spring Success. So make sure you mark your calendars. We do record all of these workshops, so this one will be up in the next couple of days, so you'll be able to rewatch it and gain access to this great knowledge. And as always, we want to say thank you to our experts. So thank you, Jeff, so much. Thank you to Cleveland Lumber, and thank you to you for sharing this great information today. We're so thankful for you, and we hope you have the great rest of your day.
Well, thank you, Allison. It's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.